Welcome back to El Madridazo. Thank you all for joining us today. Today, I figured we're going to talk about Xabi Alonso's tactical options. We have to see who's in the team, right? We talked about the possibility of Vinicius and Rodrigo leaving, whether that's going to happen. I think we're going to struggle with that until the end of the month. So hold on to your hats because I don't think we're going to get an answer on that. The possibility of them leaving as we get closer to the end of the month is, I would say, a lot not probable. Let's just say not probable. I'm not going to give a percentage, right? But let's consider them as being part of the squad. So everything's heating up. It's August 5th. We've got 2 weeks until the start of the league. We have a friendly coming up. Xabi's practicing. Got some good news from Valdebebas today. So the session began with the gym for both individual and group activations. And on the pitch, he actually had them complete possession circuits, which, Madrid is in need of applying this tactical possession-based drill and possession-based gameplay. Right? Because with Ancelotti, we really didn't have any kind of tactical scheme or way of playing. So he had him do 4-on-4s, 5-on-5 series, and at the end, finished with some finishing moves. I know Mendy worked indoors, and Endrick and Bellingham continued their recovery work. It sounds like Gonzalo Garcia will be the next number 9. He's a first-team player, so assuming he is going to be on the squad, guys, and I don't see him leaving anywhere, that kind of puts Vinicius and Rodrigo at odds, right? With all the planning. Endrick, he's in recovery, so I don't know if he's going to leave. There's a lot of decisions that need to be made at the front. I've also heard that Mendy plans to stay and he plans to compete for a starting spot. Whether that happens, how many times did we see Mendy start a game or end up playing? I can't remember the last time I saw Mendy play. I'll leave it at that. And it sounds like his entourage is surprised that the club hasn't announced the renewal of his contract, which was finalized last year. So Mendy is definitely a weird situation, right? Because we haven't really seen him step up. He's had some really bad games, and he's had some decent games, but nothing at the level at which I would expect a player who plays in Real Madrid. So that's kind of the news that's going on. Let's get started. And some people sent me some questions. Feel free to do that. I haven't even addressed that. If you want to send me questions, whether you think I'm capable of answering them or not, we'll leave it at that. But if you want to send me any questions about the team, about anything related to the podcast, feel free. But my vision for today was talk about his options, right, with the current squad. So let's dive in. As of today, we're packed with attacking stars. All right, we've got Mbappe, we've got Vinicius, we've got Rodrigo. We are facing challenges in the defense and midfield, but I think we have so many people that we've signed that has been taken care of. The defense has been hit hard by injuries, so we have Militao, Alaba, Rudiger, who have been hurt. And Rudiger towards the end of the season, after playing I don't know how many minutes, but there comes a point in time when a player is just run through and tired, right? So that leaves the young center backs like Hausen, Raul Asensio as the only fully fit options, really. Trent's arrival as a free agent, I think, strengthens that right back position. But left back is thin with Mendy still regaining his fitness. We've talked about it at the beginning of this episode. It's hard to say what's going to happen with Mendy. In the midfield, the absence of Toni Kroos's passing is a big loss. And there's concerns about Ceballos wanting to leave. We saw him. There was a clip of him at the airport. He gets interviewed, and they're asking him whether he's going to return to Betis, and he says, Betis is his home. So, a lot of innuendos there. Let's leave it at that, right? So, I'm not sure about Dani Ceballos. I'm not sure what's going to happen with his future. Luka Modric's departure kind of leaves the door open for a lot of things to happen. And a lot of folks that I would presume would have left are now potentially going to stay. We do have Arda Güler, who's being tested as a makeshift pivot. He's got, obviously organizational skills that we can count on. But how does Xabi build a cohesive system with his squad, right? That's what we want to get down to. It is, how does he build a team that can be tested and win and get to that part of the season, March, April, when it really matters and you start to depend on your B team, right? Because everyone has been tested. They're starting to get hurt. They're racking up minutes. So March, April is Champions League season, right? That's when playoffs begin, quarterfinals, etc. So how do we get to that point without burning our best players? You end up depending on your signings, right? The people that have just come in that you need to figure out where to put them, what to do with them. And he's shown tactical flexibility. All right. At Bayer Leverkusen, he favored what I would call a 3-4-2-1, who that would slowly turn into a 3-4-3. He does prefer to play with a back three, and that back three constitutes with aggressive pressing, quick vertical passing through kind of what I would say is a staggered midfield. They kind of split up into triangles. There are reports he's adapting to a 4-3-3 or a 4-4-2 at Madrid too. So, that could be due to the defensive injury crisis and to better fit players like Bellingham. So let's explore the options, right? Let's talk about who he would play in what position, starting with the 3-4-2-1 from his Leverkusen days. So assuming he would keep that strategy, that 3-4-2-1, I predict the lineup could look like this. Back three, I predict Hausen, Asensio, and Tchouaméni, who can drop from the midfield until Militao or Rudiger returns, right? We've seen Tchouaméni step into that position. I know he doesn't like to play defense, but he's been tested. So, potentially we have an option there. And Hausen's composure and buildup is definitely promising. I think Tchouaméni's versatility would make this work. As the wing backs, I would say Trent on the right, where he shows his world-class passing and creativity. that would somewhat mimic Grimaldo's role at Leverkusen. So Xabi would prefer that. On the left, we have the option of Fran Garcia, who's definitely staying, or Alvaro Carreras, the new signing. They could provide the necessary width, right? So I think in terms of the defense, without taking into consideration Carvajal, without taking into consideration Alaba, without taking into consideration Rudiger, we have a structure back there that looks decent. Obviously, I'd prefer Rudiger back there, but this structure, I think, is what will make sense for the beginning of the season. And I think he will test this probably next week against Osasuna. Those are his only options, really. I don't know if Carvajal is ready to play, to be frank, right? He hasn't been tested. He might even play Carvajal on the friendly next week. So we'll see what he does. That's the defense. In the midfield, we have Valverde, undisputed. He's, that's Valverde. We have Camavinga, who is back. He was injured, but Camavinga brings energy, progression. Valverde's runs into half spaces, as we saw in the Juventus match at the Club World Cup. Those are vital. I mean, we need that from Valverde. Playing Valverde in the defense is not optimal because we lose a world-class midfield pivot that makes a huge difference. If Valverde would have played in his true position against PSG, I think we would have seen a different outcome. Unfortunately, everyone's hurt, so there's nothing we can really do. In terms of attacking midfielders, I would go with Jude and Arda Güler behind the striker. Bellingham's that kind of player that thrives with freedom on the left side of the attacking mid. And Güler's creativity is central to Xabi's vision, right? I think Güler's going to play a more important role with Xabi than he did with Ancelotti, who, didn't even consider Güler. And at the end of the season, that was kind of one of the big questions out there, right? Is why won't he play Güler? And he ended up depending on Modric a lot more than